So now that we understand a bit more about what machine learning is, it's time to think about how we can work with data to create predictive models. Now, there are lots of tools, services, and programming languages that data scientists use to prepare, model, and test data. In this course, we'll look at an easy-to-use service for machine learning and modeling in Microsoft Azure, but the same principles and workflow apply to almost any machine learning framework. Azure Machine Learning is a cloud service in Azure that enables you to experiment with data and create predictive models. You start with a data set, which contains the data with which you want to experiment. And this data set provides the starting point of an experiment in which you will define a workflow of transformations to apply to the data as you explore it and prepare it for modeling. You can use your experiment to find the most effective ways to train a machine learning model and generate a predictive experiment from your training experiment, which encapsulates the machine learning model and the associated data transformations ready to be used with new data. You can then publish your predictive experiment as a web service, and client applications can call that web service to generate predicted values. Well, to get started with Azure Machine Learning, you'll need to provision an Azure ML workspace. Now, there is a free standalone workspace offering for getting started with Azure ML, and there's also a full service integrated into Azure. In this course, we're going to use the full Azure workspace, but a lot of what we'll look at applies to both. Right, well, let's take a look at how we go ahead and provision our workspace in our Azure portal. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new resource, and I could go in and hunt for it. It's, there's various places it's likely to be, or I could simply search for it using the search box. So we'll just go and do that, Azure Machine Learning. And I find a bunch of things that are fairly close matches to that, including this thing called a machine learning workspace, and that's the one that I want. So we're going to go ahead and create our workspace. We'll just choose Create. And I'm going to have to define some sort of name for my workspace. So I'll just call it AMLWS. And it just does a little check to make sure I haven't already got something with that name, so that's fine. And we can either put it into an existing resource group or create a new resource group. Resource groups are just used to keep all things that are related together. So I'm going to create a new one called Azure ML Resources. And I can choose the location where I want to deploy that. So I'll go ahead and deploy in, let's say, West Europe. And I'm going to need a storage account to go with that Azure ML workspace. The storage account is used to store the models that I'm going to create and the data that I'm going to work with and all that kind of thing in the workspace. So we'll create a new one, and I need to give it a name, and that storage account that it's got there already exists. So we'll come up with some alternative name for that. So we'll just call it AML Store 12345, something like that. And yep, we get a little tick there to tell us that that's a unique name. I've actually said AML Star. We'll just correct that. Okay, so I got the choice of a workspace pricing tier. I'm going to go, well, I don't really get a choice actually, I'm just going to go with the standard pricing tier here. So we'll go with that, and what's going to happen here is I'll be charged for web services that I use. When I publish my machine learning models as web services, I'll be charged per use. So I'm only really charged when I actually use the predictive models that I create. And what I get charged for that is based on my pricing plan. So I'm going to go and choose a pricing plan, and actually I'm going to choose the dev test pricing plan, which gives me a total of 2 compute hours, 1,000 transactions for 0 cost. So for me, just learning about this, that's a perfect choice for me. So we'll take that, and then we're ready to go. So we'll just click Create, and off goes our Azure portal to create our Azure Machine Learning workspace. So we'll just give that a minute or two to get created. And when the deployment is succeeded, I get a little message up here telling me that everything is ready. And I can go and look in my resource groups here. Here's my Azure ML Resources resource group. And I can see that what it's actually deployed is my AMLWS workspace that we asked for, and also a store, the AML Store 12345 storage account that I wanted to create to store the models and files that I'm going to work with. And also this plan here, which is my machine learning plan, which is how effectively we're going to pay for the use of the service. So these three resources are deployed together. And I can go and have a look at my workspace. And what I can see in here is just some details about that. But the most important thing here is the ability to launch Machine Learning Studio. And if I go and click that, it opens up in a new tab in my browser. And I can go ahead and just sign in using my same credentials. And this gives me the environment that I'm going to use to work with my machine learning experiments. Now you might be wondering why, if I've just created a brand new workspace, why there's already some experiments in it. And that's because you can have multiple workspaces associated with your account. So you can see that I've already got a couple of workspaces set up where I've already been working with some experiments. And I can always switch back to the one that I just created, which was in West Europe. There's my AMLWS workspace. If I switch to that one, then you can see that I've got a brand new empty workspace with no experiments in it, nothing else in any of these other folders here either, ready for me to start working with some data and experimenting and creating some web services with predictive models.